What is up, all of my beautiful, wonderful, freaking people? Welcome back to another episode of FML Talk. We are going to jump right back in to where we left off last week with my guest, Mike Caussin, and talk about all of the infidelity, the cheating, the sex addiction, and as public as his life is with his wife, he is going to share something that he has never talked about publicly. Plus, I ask all of the questions that you guys submitted and wanted me to ask, and he bravely answers them all. Get ready, y'all. Strap in. Welcome to FML Talk.
Oh my God.
Wait, how old was the other girl?
19. Can you believe that shit?
Hey, this is Gabrielle Stone.
Good book?
He did what? 48 hours?
What a dick.
Yeah, but have you seen all the photos on her Instagram?
And this is FML Talk.
Oh, no, she didn't.
Is it that you don't want to have sex because the way Jana wants to have sex is more intimate and connected? Or is it that you just kind of, like, do you not want to have sex, or do you want to just, like, pound it out, like, you know, rage style?
Right. See, Jana's like any guy's dream. Like, she's down for anything. She every now and then she wants to make love and stuff like that, and every now and then she just wants to have sex.
Yeah. Because there's a difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. For me, it's more of just, again, goes back to the whole cheating thing in itself. It's more just my shit. It's more of just, I just have moments I just feel uncomfortable. I have moments that even holding hands, I'll just kind of just want to, like, crawl out of my skin, and it has nothing to do with Jana, you know. But that's the thing about this. It's so hard because sex is so personal, right? In a relationship, that any woman would take it personal. When I try to tell, it's like, it's not you, it's not about you, it has nothing to do with you. You're gorgeous, you're sexy, you turn me on, all of those things. This is just my shit.
Where do you think that stems from? Do you know if there's, like, something? I mean, I'm sure you've done all the therapy work. Is there something that happened in your childhood that you think created that belief in you?
You know, here's something about that is, when I first got into rehab, I actually had a lot of shame that my story wasn't more fucked up, because I heard other guys in rehab that sexually abused, sexually molested by family members, by olders, by neighbors, by babysitters. And I remember talking to my like group therapist when I was there. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, yeah, when I look back at my childhood, I like to say I had a great childhood. Yes, my dad wasn't the nicest. There's, you know, physical, emotional abuse and stuff like that, and nothing was ever good enough. But there's not one thing I can necessarily say, oh, this is the reason. It's just a combination of things. And, you know, I even told my parents, because my parents felt so much guilt. They felt like they did something wrong as parents.
Right.
And I've had to tell them over and over, I'm like, look, if you took two kids, if I was a twin, you had both of us, and we were exposed to the same things growing up, the same memories, the same everything. I handled it the way I did. My twin could have handled it completely different.
Yeah.
Part of it is your biology. Part of it is just who you are, how you handle situations, how you react to them. So for me, I mean, I think part of it may be that sex was never really talked about in my household. It was always like a don't ask, don't tell. So it always felt like a secret.
Mm-hmm.
But
that led to excitement. But yeah, I can see why being in a therapy situation with so many other people that are, you know, have these deep rooted things where you're like, fuck, I almost wish that I had something to be like, okay, this is the reason why I'm broken.
100%. 100%. Early on, I wish I would have felt better about myself almost if I had something that severe to tell, like Jana, or to tell my parents, or to tell people around me.
And make it like less bad in some way.
Yeah, it almost feels like then I'm like a little bit of the victim and not just a complete fucking asshole.
Yeah.
But
it takes a big fucking person to be able to say that and own that, dude, you know? So good on you for that.
I appreciate that.
Okay. So, and, you know, we talked about how you guys are obviously in the public eye in a big way. Every time, you know, I see something pop up on E! News that has you guys in it, I'm like, oh God, just leave them alone. But you know, because of that, you open yourself up to a lot more criticism and a lot more judgment. What do you, I guess, not say to people, although I'm sure there's some people in your life that have said this to you, but what do you say to the people that think sex addiction isn't real and they that just think that that's a cop out?
You know, early on, I probably would have been defensive about it because of my shame and guilt around not really understanding everything. But now, you know what? I've owned it enough. I've talked about it enough that I'm confident if people are still saying that, okay, then you're just not educated. Sorry. You this is maybe the first thing you've seen of Jana and I, the first thing you've heard, the first time you've heard us talk about it. But that's fine. They can have their judgments. Fortunately, I'm not on social media in any capacity, so I don't have to be too subject to it. Now, Jana's Instagram account is basically ours because it's just the family all over it. But yeah, so I mean, people are going to say what they're going to say. I've never been one to care too much about that.
Yeah.
You know, as long as Jana's happy and my kids are happy and the people close to us, you know, love and respect me and us, I'm like, I'm good. But, you know, I am human. There's times where people say shit. I'm like, you're just so dumb.
Yeah. Well, and it sucks too, because I'm sure you take the burden of how Jana feels hearing that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's one of those things where, you know, a lot of people will ask, like, do you guys ever get tired of talking about it? We're like, hell yeah, we get tired of talking about it. But again, we're just playing the cards that we were dealt, you know, because it wasn't our choice to come out with stuff. So we're just trying to change the narrative, control the narrative, and help people along the way. And we've seen that happen when we're doing our live kind of tour shows, and we would have a couple that would open up to us in front of a room of 300 other people crying about what they're going through in their relationship because we've opened up enough that they're willing to. And we're like, that's the kind of shit. That's why we're doing this.
Makes it all worth it.
Oh, for sure.
So you mentioned the social media account. I've been loving Mike Mondays, by the way.
I appreciate it.
It's great. But you don't have social media on any platform. Is that obviously happened because of the addiction and the cheating? Or what was the decision that prompted that?
That was the initial for sure. Even though I never acted out via like any kind of social media, it is a recipe for disaster. And I've never had an Instagram. I've never, because again, when all this happened, I just still had Twitter and Instagram was just kind of ramping up. So I never had any of that. Facebook is basically our parents' generation stuff now. So, yeah, it's a mix of both. At this point, it's my decision also because I just don't care. And Jana does enough of that stuff for both of us that I don't want to be on there too.
She's the hardest working woman on social media.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
I have so much respect for people in general that do the stuff that she does. So yeah, now I'm happy, and yeah, you know you don't want to throw meat in the lion's cage. You know what I mean? It's just being smart. It's being respectful to boundaries. It's just not playing with fire.
Totally. So as I said at the beginning, you know, a bunch of listeners requested an episode like this, and I know you know this from doing your Mike Monday takeovers, but I put up a question box and they didn't know who was coming on. I just said someone who has cheated is coming on the show. What would you like to ask them? I got hundreds of questions. So I sifted through all of them and tried to pull out the ones I knew that you and I weren't going to cover. So I don't want to call this a rapid fire question because I'm sure like some of the answers will be lengthy, but we're going to go into like the audience question segment now.
Love it. Bring it on.
So the first one, why cheat as opposed to ending the relationship? And that doesn't have to be with Jana. That can be in any of the relationships that you've cheated, that you didn't have kids and a wife to think about, you know?
You know, this might, again, kind of be like an oxymoron, but I didn't want to be a bad guy. Like, I would always get back with the person I cheated on because I hated being the bad guy, even though I cheated in the first place. So I didn't want to like hurt anybody. So I was just like, oh, I don't want to hurt them and like break up with them. So I'll just go cheat instead, which makes no fucking sense. Yeah. And as part of me too, I didn't want to be alone. You know, it was kind of part of that Jerry Maguire syndrome that when all of his girlfriends are interviewed in that movie, it's like he can't be alone. And I always wanted to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is a big one that got asked multiple times. Was it worth it?
Fuck no. No. The amount of daily triggers and obstacles that you know I've caused myself and my wife is just none of that's worth it. I wish I could take back all of it.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have done a very good job at finding the silver linings and being able to educate and inspire a lot of people. But I'm sure if you could go back in time and push a button, it would make it all a lot easier.
Yeah, I do not recommend to people to do it this way. This is not the way to do it.
Not highly recommended.
No.
When you actually physically crossed the line, did you feel any guilt in that moment? And were you thinking of your significant other while doing it? So maybe like, let's say the first time that you crossed the line when you guys were married.
Yeah. Definitely felt, honestly, probably not while doing it. And probably not leading up to it. But immediately after, like a broken record every time, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that again. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. Not doing it. And then like the next day I'm texting with my fair partner or something. So yeah, it was, so I definitely felt guilt, but to be honest, not before or during.
That's so interesting to me. So like leading up to it and like walking into whatever room you guys were about to be in, you weren't like, fuck dude, this is gonna like blow some shit up.
That's where a lot of the addiction piece comes in, because it's all about that ritualization and like excitement and secrecy, and like that's where like the addiction thrives in that shit, right? The anticipation, and I mean half the excitement at the time, I hate to say the word excitement because that's what it is in the moment. That's part of it. Part of it is planning it, is figuring it out, is the moments leading up to it. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, what the fuck? Why did I do this?
The worst come down ever.
The worst.
Yeah. What values have you learned from committing the act of cheating?
Probably the two things. I mean, there's a laundry list, but the two biggest things that stand out to me are self-respect and respect for my partner. Because looking back at my behaviors in all my relationships, I own that I was very selfish, that it was kind of my way or the highway. Granted, I had a career that kind of had to be that way with professional football, but yeah, I didn't respect myself though. I didn't respect myself, and I didn't respect anybody that I was with. So those are the biggest things that I've learned to be able to do, is respect myself and respect my wife. Which
are huge values to have in any relationship, in any walk of life. Yeah.
Huge. And the sad thing about that, side note, is friends and family, utmost respect, always treated them with love and care and support and friendship. But it's just like the people that were the one person that was close to me, the one person that could hurt me the most, I would not respect them. I would not respect myself with them.
Right. Interesting.
Crazy.
I'm sure that was interesting to dive into in therapy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I know, because I've done all the similar work. All right. What was your end game at the time? Was it to have a wife and a girlfriend? We kind of touched on this with having your cake and eating it too, but
end game,
so like after you would cheat, were you like, I'm not going to do this again, it's done, and then it would pull you back in? Or were you fully trying to be like, I'm going to have a wife and I'm going to have a girlfriend on the side?
No, I kept thinking I was going to stop. But the thing is, I wouldn't have ever stopped until what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never had an end game of I really wanting a girlfriend. Because again, I didn't want that level of intimacy of like a quote unquote girlfriend. I just wanted my cake and eat it too. 100%.
But it's interesting to me that it was with the same person. Like you didn't feel the need to go out and get tons of different people on
I
vacation.
did. I did get others as well,
Mm-hmm.
but the constant was
Right.
the one person, only because that felt the safest because we're on the same page.
Yeah. When
You know what I mean?
you and Jana decided that you were going to work through it and reconcile, were you open with her about like, this is who it is? This is like, did she get in?
Oh yeah, I panicked that time. She FaceTimed me, and when I told her, and she started asking me questions, who is she? What's her name? What's her number?
Yeah.
I gave her all of that.
Yeah.
That was bad.
And did they speak?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brutal.
And good on Jana, man. I mean, because that takes some balls. I remember the first time anything shady popped up on my ex-husband's phone, and I told him to leave the house. I was like, give me her number. And he begrudgingly did. And she wouldn't get on the phone with me, but we had this like very long texting conversation. And, I asked her questions that, weren't even true, just to see if her answers were good enough. And it really does bring you some type, and this wasn't the girl he was having an affair with. This wasn't the 19-year-old. This was a different person. And it's crazy how women will go to lengths to protect the person that they've been doing something wrong with. So I'm curious, was your affair partner, was she open with Jana, and did she like talk to her, or was it more like,
It seemed like it was pretty open. Yeah. I think at first it was a little, but then.
Did she ever tell her husband?
Yeah, he found out too.
Okay.
And it was, and that plagued us for a while. Like, I think they ended up getting divorced. And like in the early years, Jana would still like text either one of them, like reach out of pain. He would text like us to like stir the pot, and and I'll be like, Jana, just fucking block him.
Yeah.
And we were able to get some closure when I apologized to him on the phone one time. And it was just one of those things that from that point on, it was radio silent. I think he needed that, like man to man, to like for me to own and apologize.
Sure.
But yeah, so.
Heavy shit, man.
Heavy.
What is your opinion on once a cheater, always a cheater? Which is thrown around constantly.
Constantly. I get it. I get why that's a a stigma. But just like anything, people are capable of change. There's people that do, not to minimize cheating, people that do a lot worse that have changed. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I think everybody's capable of making a life shift if they put in the work and do the work.
Yeah, shit. I'm always nobody special, but if I can fucking change,
yeah,
some of these other guys can freaking change.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people that are listening to not take less than that. If you're in a relationship and you're trying to work through infidelity that's happened, you can't accept anything less than like, I will change and I will put in the work to go do that for you and for myself.
Yeah. And it's a constant temperature gauge where there's no, Jana and I have been asked a lot, when did you guys know? Or Jana, when did you know? There's never one day where either one of us woke up and be like, all right, yep, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
It was grinding it out day after day, putting the pieces together, stacking the, bricks and realizing that, okay, let's gain some momentum. We can do this. There wasn't that one day. It's going to take time. For
sure. Were you looking or wanting new sex or just more sex?
The honest answer is neither, because what I know now about myself in the sex addiction piece, it was all about my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So it was me having emotions that I didn't know how to express, me going through things in my life that I didn't know how to release, that the only thing that was my drug. Sex was my drug. So it wasn't about sex itself. It was about releasing my emotions that I'd have fucking just pen up, and I'd just be like, I can't even fucking sit in my own skin. I got to do what I've always done.
Right.
And drugs and alcohol were never an option for me personally because of athletics and sports and where I wanted to go in my life. Mm-hmm. And then the lifestyle I had in the NFL just glorified,
right,
that kind of lifestyle, which didn't help my addiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really, honestly, it wasn't about either. It was about, for me, it was all about emotions.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Okay, this is going to be an interesting question because you guys do talk about this in your book. The question is, have you ever been cheated on? So I'll have you answer that before we talk about the time that Jana was on Dancing with the Stars and that whole thing that you guys reference in the book. So before Jana's situation, have you ever been cheated on that you know of?
Yes.
Was it someone that you were cheating on with as well?
I've had both. I've had someone cheat on me early in high school I consider her the first person I ever loved, honestly. I was young, but I was like, even to this day as an adult, knowing what love is, I was like, yeah, I loved her.
Oh, well, dude, I mean, talk about going back to some of the root causes, like, hello.
I know, yeah. So that was definitely a part where it's like the first girl I felt like I loved left me for somebody else. And then, yeah, other relationships was like my college girlfriend that we dated toxically for 4 or 5 years on and off in college was just back and forth.
And so when you were cheated on by the girl in high school, what feeling did that give you? Were you heartbroken?
Destroyed.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed. And I kind of had this like subconscious thought of like, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it doesn't take a therapist to be like, well, that's enough for someone to be like, okay, I'm going to do it before anybody else can do it to me again. Not that makes it okay, but it makes sense.
Yes, exactly. It's an explanation a little bit.
Yeah. So when you were in rehab and then you guys were taking time apart, that coincided when Jana was on Dancing with the Stars.
Correct.
And she had some like emotional fling during that, or was it more than that? I can't remember from reading.
She had, she stepped, if we were not separated, like if she was doing the show and none of the stuff I did would have happened, it would have been an issue. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? It was enough to, consider it was stepping outside of the boundaries of our relationship.
Yeah. And I know you said in the book that it took a while because she was obviously so angry, and rightfully so. It took a while for her to be able to apologize for that because she, probably felt like you deserved it. Probably felt like, well, yeah, of course I needed to go get some type of comfort to fill myself up because, my husband did this to me. So what did it mean for you when she was finally able to like own that and kind of apologize for that?
It took a while for her to get there for sure. Like anyone would understand. If you're, because you're comparing apples to oranges here, it's completely different. But I needed it, and I think what she realized is that I needed it not for her to admit that she did something wrong or to point the finger at her. Mm-hmm. I needed it because when she would get triggered, express things to me, yell at me, get mean or whatever, she wasn't from a hurt place in those early years. In the back of my mind, I was like filtering it. I couldn't hear all of it because I'm like, well, you stepped outside of our relationship too.
Right.
Like, I never agreed to separation. You know what I mean? So it was like all these things. So I was like, you being able to own it and just apologize, I was able to check that box and ultimately be able to lean more in with empathy for her.
Yeah.
I just needed to hear that acknowledgement and the apology.
Yeah. Do you think that ever would have happened if she wasn't dealing with your infidelity? Like if she would have gone to do that show completely happy with a loving, healthy marriage, do you think anything would have happened?
No. Having said that, if our marriage had been what it had been before I got discovered, maybe, because we didn't have a great marriage.
Mm.
You know, I was not a healthy person.
Yeah.
So
There was unhappiness.
there was definitely unhappiness. And in her past too, like she said when we first started dating, she'd never been really a good girlfriend and has stepped out of relationships. And so, you know, who knows? But I know if things were good and happy, like I trust her tenfold. I trust her, you know, so much now where she even gave me shit where the movie she was filming recently this summer, you know, she had a good looking co-star, you know, fit guy. And he stayed at our house one night because they had to postpone filming. So instead of staying in a hotel, they were filming in Tennessee. We're like, yeah, just stay at our house. And I had a guy's night at my buddy's house already scheduled. And I left to go do that. And Jana's like, you're going to leave me.
She's like, do you care at all? Aren't you jealous at all?
She literally got mad at me the next day. She's like, why aren't you jealous? I'm like, I've never been a jealous person. I was like, I trust you.
Yeah.
You know, where even his poor wife got upset that they were there alone and they had to say that. But I was just like, well,
and it's a tricky situation when you're in the industry. My ex-husband and I had a lot of, well, let me rephrase that. My ex-husband had a lot of issues with being on set, having to do on-screen kisses. Like, you know, it's a weird industry to navigate through.
Oh, for sure. And it takes someone to understand it a little bit to kind of be balanced with that. But
for sure,
until Jana does like a Showtime series or something, I'm fine with all the Hallmark Lifetime stuff. But
right.
Come talk to me again when she has to do
like
something.
Ass naked writing someone on screen. You're like, oh well.
I will not be there on set that day. I will not watch it at all. So yeah.
Okay, 2 more. Do you ever have the urge to cheat again? And if so, what do you do about it?
So, you know, this is a loaded question that I've gotten from Jana. And my answer is this. I'm able to acknowledge what comes up for me. I'm able to acknowledge and say, man, in this current situation, if this was the past, I would totally try to go act out right now. That's my way. So it's not me sitting there thinking like, oh man, I want to go have sex with somebody, or I need to go watch porn, or I need to go do whatever. It's me just being able to acknowledge with the shit that's coming up for me. I'm like, man, in the past, this is how I would handle it. Mm-hmm. But that's not how I handle it now. So now it's, you know, I'll call my sponsor. I'll call brothers in my program. I'll go to a meeting. But if none of that is immediately available, my biggest thing is I'll physically get up from whatever I'm doing or wherever I'm at in the house and go do something else.
Right. And
typically by the time, and this is just something I found that works for me, typically by the time I get to the next room, I completely forget about what was going on.
Yeah. So
it's just change of scenery for me, and it's just
having the tools.
I'm just repaving different paths in my, you know, in my brain and in my nervous system to react different ways.
Yeah. Did you ever think you'd get caught?
You know, I think every cheater thinks yes and believes yes, where that's part of that daily guilt that you live with, and the codependence grew immensely between Jana and I and I'd never been codependent in a relationship. And it was always like gauging how she was. If she was in a bad mood or like short that day, I'd be like, well, this is it. This is the day. She found out.
Right.
You know, and then I'd figure it's like, I'd finally get it out of her, and it's like something with work, and I'm like, oh, like I survived another day.
But like exhausting.
The fucking worst. It's literally like, you know, they say in any 12-step recovery, it's living one day at a time. I was doing that on the opposite end of trying to survive one day at a time.
Right.
And it's just like, anytime something was wrong, here it is. This is it. So I think
And that shit'll give you cancer, man. Like holding that energy inside of you,
100%.
it's so unhealthy and so draining.
Oh, yeah, it is cancerous. That's the perfect adjective for it.
Yeah. So this is one of my questions as we start to wrap up. Obviously there's countless news articles about both of you and what you guys have gone through. You guys have your super successful podcast, and you've really like put a lot of your story out there. Have you guys, I'm sure you've had the conversations, but are you nervous about when your kids get to that age, like what they're going to be reading?
Another great question. And we've gotten this a few times. And, what I say to that is we can't control the information that's out there. We've chosen to live openly around all of this. And the kids are going to find out. It's inevitable. And what I told Jana too is, look, by the time they're of age to see this stuff, so we're probably at least another 5 years with our daughter. She's turning 5 this month. She'll be, 10. She'll probably start maybe using the internet some. So we have at least another 5 years there, where I want our kids, by the time they see it, their memory of us is completely different than what they see or what they read.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're like, wait, mommy and daddy went through this?
Right.
Like, no, that's not the mom and dad I know. The mom and dad I know, show conflict resolution, love each other, love me, love my brother, love, we have so much fun together. We're happy. We're doing all these things where we have a discussion about it, and then they're just like, okay, and move on, because it's so far from the reality that they know that it won't even affect them.
Right.
And so that's the optimistic, that's the best case scenario. Yeah, oh, of course. That's the butterflies and rainbows scenario. Now, when they get older, and even older than that, teenager, young high school, stuff like that, and have more questions around the specifics of things, then we sit and talk to them about it and can explain that to them.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
Are you prepared for Jolie or Jace, I guess, to potentially be mad at you at some point?
I would, yes, but I would honestly be surprised. And maybe I'm being a little naive to that, but that's a silver lining of all of this, that I'm extremely grateful that, number one, I got into the 12-step program for this at a young age. And number two, that our kids are young. Because I have plenty of brothers in program that their kids are grown or teenagers, and they've had to go through all this, and their kids are mad at them for years and just starting to reconcile.
Yeah.
Where I look at it as a gift that it happened so young.
Yeah.
For, you know what I mean? So my hope is that, kind of what I was on my soapbox saying at the beginning there, is that they won't be mad because they know me as this dad that they've only seen love towards their mom. They've only seen respect around the house. Like, that's all they've seen. So for them to get mad of something that happened when they were not even born or an infant would surprise me a little bit. But if that's how they reacted, then I would give them that space.
Yeah, it's got to be.
I'd be like, hey, if you're upset, I totally understand. I'm here to talk to you about it. You can talk to mommy, but we're here as your safe place to express any feelings or emotions you have around it. But that took some time to come to terms with them figuring it out, because it does suck.
Yeah, I'm sure that weighs on you.
Yeah. So, I'm staying optimistic about it, but it is inevitable. And again, our goal right now is just to be the best mom and dad that they can possibly have for the next 5-10 years and figure it out then.
Well, and at 100%, the fact that, this was the catalyst to put you into the program and to make you go really like deep dive and fix some shit made you a better human, but be a much better father, I'm sure.
Oh my God. I don't know if I've shared this. So this might be
dropping a bomb on FML Talk.
Yeah, dropping a bomb on FML Talk. I have memories of when Jolie, our 5-year-old, was an infant, rocking her in her room, like on my shoulder, having my phone and looking, either texting my fare or looking for women to act out with. Like while I'm holding my daughter.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's heavy.
What a fucking piece of shit, you know? And to your point, thank God that is not my life these days. Thank God. Because that's just, you know, and that's a part of my shame that's still there, that, you know, I look at my daughter and I'm like, I want to like, she had no idea, but I just like want to like hold her even more and like apologize to her that I was that unpresent, that I was holding her as a little beautiful baby.
Yeah.
Scrolling on my phone, looking to act out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But thank goodness that it turned around the way that it did, because I see, even just from afar, you know, on social media and from knowing Jana, I see what great parents you guys are. And, you know, it takes certain things to shape us into humans to become really great role models, or, you know, daughters or parents. So if that's what it took to make you the person that you are now, to be able to be an incredible partner to her and an incredible father to them, then, you know, so be it. It sucks for all the people that got caught in the crossfire, but at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Gotta look at it that way. Otherwise, we'll just drive ourselves
crazy with shame
Otherwise,
and guilt.
what the fuck is going on?
Right, exactly.
Dude, thank you so much for being here. I also want to shout out and thank your beautiful wife, because I'm sure this is not like great to rehash and reopen all of this for either of you. But as a woman, like I sympathize with, you know, how you having to tell your story again, that she's obviously so personally involved with, and I love her dearly. But I'm so grateful that you were so open. You were the perfect person I could have ever imagined to bring on to satisfy these listeners with a topic like this. So thank you for coming on and being open, and really, really thankful that you are better and here.
Stone, I appreciate it. And, you know, Jana loves you, and, you know, she's very supportive, and you know, we as a couple and as individuals, we're always here to help you, and, you know, consider you a friend of both of us. So anytime you need anything, you know, we're here, and I appreciate you giving me the platform to talk to your fans and your listeners and help them hopefully understand a little bit more from the guy's perspective.
Totally. Thank you. And we can't wait for this pandemic to end so we can finally all hang out, the four of us. I mean,
I know. It's unreal.
All right, dude. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Wow. This episode was so eye-opening, so intriguing and interesting. And I'm so glad that you guys were demanding that I do something like this, because it was really almost cathartic to hear it from a male cheater's perspective. So I hope you guys got as much out of that as I did. I again want to thank Mike for coming on and being so open and so vulnerable, and taking every question I asked like a fucking champ. And again, my thanks and love to his hot fucking wife, Jana. I am grateful to know you both and to have had both of you on now, and I love you both so much. All right, it is about that time, y'all. We're going to get into a quite interesting FML story.
Hey, Gabrielle, this is Lauren, and this is my FML story. I met my ex-husband online dating. He was a Marine. I was in nursing school. Two normal people just getting together and falling in love. We dated briefly, got married very shortly, within 7 months, I think, after meeting. We decided to move down to South Florida, where our families were. We bought a house. We had a business. I was working as a nurse. We had a child. Everything was great. But my ex-husband started exhibiting some very bizarre behavior, including being obsessed that the world was ending. And he found a pastor on YouTube that he connected with, and that pastor had convinced my husband at the time that we had to move. We had to get out of the city because the world was ending. And so after a lot of arguing, I finally agreed to follow him and check it out wherever this guy was living, and that we would maybe travel, but that I did not have to stay in this one area. So I reluctantly agreed to sell all of our shit, including our house and our business, everything, packed what we had left in a tiny little trailer and towed it in the back of a truck with my daughter and my dog and me and my husband. And we traveled across the country. Got there, I realized this place was literally a compound. There was multiple families living there. The leader of this so-called religious group had put his wife on the other side of the property so that he could pursue a 19-year-old that he had actually brought him there himself. Needless to say, I realized this was not a good situation. My phone was smashed on the ground so that I couldn't communicate with anybody. I still secretly communicated with my family. I knew this group was going to be in a major city, specifically Dallas, shortly thereafter I got there. And within a couple months, I had created a plan to get the heck out of there. When I got to Dallas, I had my father come meet us at the hotel. We snuck out of the hotel while everybody was busy during a religious service, and I was able to get back home, where I promptly filed for an injunction and a divorce. It blew up their whole operation, getting the FBI included, and my ex-husband came back down to Florida, tried to convince me that he was wrong and that he had changed and that he would be different and it wouldn't be the same and that those people were crazy and blah, 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 blah. Needless to say, I still had his Facebook on my computer from when we were married, so I promptly went on there and discovered that in his messages, he was basically putting out applications for a new wife on all these religious groups on Facebook. So I promptly continued to serve him with divorce papers, divorced him, and within a few months of me divorcing him, he was already remarried to some other unsuspecting poor girl. And that is my FML story.
Oh my God. I thought my FML story was bad. This poor girl legitimately accidentally got put into a cult with her gem of an ex-husband. I mean, and then to find out that he was putting out applications and hiring wives. I am so sorry, girl. I feel like this story should be on an episode on one of those TLC shows that has those reenactments happening. Next week, we are going to do something that everyone has been asking me to do since we started FML Talk. And I have been resisting against it, but I want to listen to my people, to my FMLers, so we are going to jump in next week. It's going to be an episode all about the shit left out of the book. It's gonna be a juicy one, guys, because there's chapters that were left out that I'm gonna read, and there are things that just didn't make the cut. And we are going to unpack it all right here with you on FML Talk. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at FML Talk Podcast so you can submit your FML stories, keep up with behind the scenes info, and we're going to be releasing new merch soon, so you want to keep an eye out for that. I can't wait for you guys to see these designs. They're so fucking cute. Until next week, guys, cheers.